Here's what happened. It's the summer of 1982. I just finished my freshman year at Syracuse and I'm ready to enjoy the summer. My dad calls me and says, get ready. You, your grandfather, and I, we're going to the World's Fair in Knoxville, Tennessee. Really? Okay. This was just random. Not that I hadn't been on road trips with my grandfather before. I had. My grandfather and I actually had taken many road trips together. I've been on lots of vacations and road trips with my dad. But oddly enough, the three of us had never been on a road trip together. Why now? And why the World's Fair in Knoxville, Tennessee? Don't send me letters, Knoxville. I'm not saying it's not a lovely town, but it wasn't like Los Angeles. It wasn't Chicago or Miami. Knoxville? We had never been to a World's Fair before. I didn't even know what happened at World's Fair. And more specifically, why are we driving? Can't we get on a plane? Nope, we're riding in the car. That meant my grandfather had to fly from Chicago to New Jersey to join us, and then we get in the car and drive to Knoxville. But okay, so we got in my dad's 1976 300 diesel Mercedes-Benz. We headed to Knoxville, Tennessee. And now we're headed to the World's Fair, which was interesting. You know, all the nations had their exhibits in their own buildings, and we went to Japan and we stood in front of the big tower. I had just pledged Alpha 06, so I needed to wear Alpha paraphernalia everywhere I went. So we were having a good time. The fairgrounds were really big. They actually had a ski lift that you could get on that could take you from one side of the park to the other. The most exciting thing for me was the arcade. And this is 1982. I've been a gamer since Pong. I remember playing Pong in the lobby of the Morristown Diner. And not just your regular video game arcade, which in 1982 was fabulous, but the carnival games like you see at amusement parks. I love these games. Why do I love them? I don't know. I spend lots of money and don't win practically anything. Truth. So I get right to it. I go to the first game. They're inexpensive. It's only, $2 or $3, whatever it is. But of course, it takes me $30 or $40 to win just a little booby prize. And I think the first thing I won was this little seal. And it probably took me 30 minutes of playing to get that. So I'm going from game to game. Then it starts. My grandfather, he walks up to some game and says, I want to try. And it was one of those where you had to sink a ball like a softball into this giant milk carton. He takes the first ball, misses, second ball, whap, right in. He wins like a horse. A horse. It's pretty big. I'm like, wow, look at you. We go to the next game. I start playing. I spend $10, $20, $30. My grandfather steps up. And this is like the bottle tops where you have to throw the ring around the bottles. They're like hundreds of bottles. I'm throwing rings. They're bouncing off everywhere. It's like ricocheting and bling, 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 bling. My grandfather steps up. 1 ring, 2 ring, 3 ring, plink, winner. But he didn't just win a prize. For anyone who's played those games and you see the hundreds of bottles, of all of those bottles, there's always 2 bottles that have a red stripe around them, something like that. In the middle, buried. But if you hit them, you don't win just a prize, you win the mega prize. He won the mega prize. It's a giraffe. It's huge. We go to the next game, same thing. I'm spending $20, $30, $40. He spends $5. Blink, he wins a lion. He goes to the next game. Same thing. He wins a polar bear. At this point, we're now walking around the park. We're creating a scene. I'm two-fisted holding these giant stuffed animals. My grandfather's carrying one, my dad's carrying one, and it looks ridiculous. And now we have to walk everywhere because we can't get on the ski lift with the traveling Knoxville stuffed zoo. So with 6 stuffed animals in tow, my grandfather steps up to the next game. My father grabs him. He's like, stop. You can't play any more games. That's it. You are cut off. My grandfather, I'll never forget it. He had this little sheepish grin on his face. He was so proud of himself. It was like Michael Jordan when he hit all the threes and was like, well, what can I do? He was just on a roll. It was like every game he played, he didn't just win, he won huge. This is a bad picture because the sun's kind of in the background, but look at the size of this animal. It's as big as he is. We had like 4 of those. So we take all these stuffed animals back to the hotel. The next day that we go to the fair, it's like everywhere we went, people are like, hey, it's the animal guys. You playing any more games today? Like we were a thing now. We actually had a really good time together at the World's Fair. And once we wrapped up, we're ready to go to Chicago. And my father says, what are we going to do with these stuffed animals? My grandfather's like, what do you mean? I'm taking them home. My father's like, no, you're not. My grandfather's like, yes, I am. He's like, no, you're not. Yes, I am. He's like, Dad, we can't fit these in the car. He decides to keep the lion and the giraffe. And we give away the polar bear, the horse, the seal, and all the other little booby prizes that I won. We load up the car, hit the road, we're heading to Chicago. So I'm driving, my grandfather's in the passenger seat, my father's asleep in the back, the lion is behind me, and the giraffe is in the middle of the back seat. And we had to open the sunroof to let the giraffe's head out the top because he literally would not fit in the car. This is the section where I don't have a legal department for my YouTube channel, but if I did, there would be a disclaimer. Under no circumstances should anybody ever attempt to do this. It's illegal, it's dangerous, it's reckless. Do not attempt this anytime, anywhere, for any reason. That said, long before Maverick and Goose, I have always had the need for speed. So as I'm driving, I am flying. I mean, I'm driving at about 115 miles an hour. I'm rolling. My grandfather was always funny because whenever you were doing something you had no business doing, he would never say anything right away. He would just kind of watch it. He would see how long you planned to do whatever stupid thing you were doing before he would finally stop you and say, cut it out. He'd give you enough room or enough rope to hang yourself. So there I am driving on the freeway. There he was, the Tennessee State Trooper. Couldn't have been a quarter mile ahead of me. I'm in trouble. Senior, I see him. So I tapped on the brakes. Get off the brakes, he don't see the front of the car dip. I gotta slow down. Well, just tap him, and don't hit him when you go past him so he doesn't see the red lights. And then we are right on top of him, and it's like slow motion. He had the mirrored sunglasses and just the gun. We went flying by him. Maybe I got down to about 100. When he gets to the car, you don't talk. I do all the talking. You don't say a word. If he asks you a question, I answer for you. You understand? Okay. About a minute goes by. Nothing. 2 minutes go by. Nothing. 5 minutes. Nothing happens. My grandfather and I have not said a word. Finally, my grandfather breaks the silence. I know what happened there. A trooper, he was on probation. He didn't want to get on the radio and say, headquarters, I just saw 3 black men, a lion, and a giraffe in a Mercedes doing 115 miles an hour heading westbound on Interstate 40. They were going to be like, Fred, we told you about drinking on the job one more time. That's it. Oh, gosh. Oh, I laughed so hard. That was my grandfather. Of all the things to say. My dad, he slept through the whole thing. Never knew. No clue. My dad passed away in 1988. My grandfather passed away 10 years later in 1998. I loved them both very much, and I miss them both. But as you can tell, they're always with me. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button, leave me a like or a comment or something. Follow me on Facebook, and until next week, that's what happened.